Loose woman. They say I'm a beast and feast on it, when all along that's what I thought a woman was. They say I'm a bitch or witch. I've claimed the same and never winced. They say I'm a macha, hell on wheels, viva la vulva, fire and brimstone, man-hating, devastating, boogie woman lesbian. Not exactly, but I like the compliment. The mob arrives with stones and sticks to maim and lame and do me in. All the same, when I open my mouth, they waddle like gin. Diamonds and pearls tumble from my tongue, or toads and serpents, depending on the mood I'm in. I like the itch I provoke, the rustle of rumor, the itch of crinoline. I am the woman of myth and bullshit. True, I've authored some of it. I built my little house of ill repute, brick by brick, labored, loved, and masoned it. I live like so. Heart as sail, ballast with rudder, bow. Sin and success, I think of me to gluttony. By all accounts, I'm a danger to society. I'm pancha via. I break laws, upset the natural order, anguish the Pope, and make fathers cry. I am beyond the jaw of law. I am la desperada, most wanted public enemy, my happy picture grinning from the wall. I strike terror among the men. I can't be bothered what they think. Que se vayan a la ching chang chong. For this, the cross, the cavalry, in other words, I'm anarchy. I am an aim well, shoot sharp, sharp-tongued, sharp-thinking, fast-speaking, foot-loose, loose-tongued, let-loose, woman on the loose. Loose woman, beware honey. I'm bitch, beast, macha, wachale, ping, 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 I break things. That is Sandra Cisneros. It's one of the first poems I heard when I first started reading poetry. And before I go on, I want to stop. I wanted you to all get what I got. I don't know if I was able to translate that, but I wanted to give you a moment to be able to have that kind of like how it gets to your head and makes your head feel hot. That's how she makes me feel. But before I go on, I'd like to thank Evan.
Sure.
For hosting this. I'd like to thank Emerald Tablet for everything they do in the community. It's kind of amazing what they do. I'd like to thank my friends who came, who don't have to come actually because they're not poets and they're not writers. And, well, some of them are journalists and things like that, and one of them is a writer. But you know, I kind of feel like it's great to, sorry. That's the nervous part. But they don't have to come, actually, and you don't have to come. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. It's great to make art with community. It's great to listen to art. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for being here.
And, you know, thank you. William Taylor Jr. is not here. I will torture him later.
Yeah, definitely.
He was, I'd like to thank him before I torture him for nominating me tonight. This, at least what I thought the idea of tonight was that we would read what we were inspired, like we would concentrate on a poet that we chose, that we're influenced by. But I thought that I would read the first poem that I wrote after reading Sandra Cisneros, and I have to say it was probably a few years. And I did this weird thing where I carried my book of Sandra Cisneros, Loose Woman Poetry, and read it to my friends, and they were kind of bored after a while. But after a few years, I realized what it had done. It made me want to write. And this is the first poem that I wrote many years ago. Everything that I needed to know about writing, I learned from being a stripper. Each no brings you closer to yes. You just have to keep at it. Sometimes it's the ugliest of moments that brings you closer to the money shot. Beauty is ethereal. You might be the most beautiful girl to one and a leper to another. In the audience, you will find flat-eyed faces looking at you like you're deformed. And then you'll find the lovers of the deformed. And they'll make you God for a few minutes. And that's all anyone needs. Words on a napkin become poems, poems on a page become books. It's something that you can hold in your hand. And the dollar that the idiot gave you to sit on his lap disappears into a stack of bills, and it's something you can hold in your hand. It all adds up. Some days are good and you're gold, and other days you're wading through mud like a starving pig, looking for scraps, and you can't figure out what you're doing in the cesspool of dead words and men who come out to the club to jack off at 11 a.m. but have no money to tip. When you approach the altar, you're hoping for a masterpiece, a $100 bill. But you might get excited for the 20s. You'll take the 5s. You'll take what you can get. Somewhere along the line, you'll become addicted to the heat that comes from writing a good poem or earning your rent in one night. There aren't many rules. Just remember not to fall in love with the customers or your own words. And if you feel exposed, you're doing something right. So a little later, Sandra Cisneros, I think actually still, having her influence. The news story about, I've always hated that pink is the color of woman girl because I fluctuate between red and black. To be laced into a tutu for such a long time and nothing in return. And if you care to know, most days, I think about sex more than 500 men gathered at the great mausoleum for the circle jerk of all time. Unlike them, I never fall. With the gyration of my hips, I'll say, let's do it again. And of course, I'll flaunt what I want, no matter if it's a yes or a no. I say things like this because I can. Artemis. Do you all know about Artemis, right? You know who Artemis was? Who knows who Artemis was? A few people. So Artemis, there you are. William Taylor Jr. is no longer in trouble. So Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, and when you look at the different phases of the moon, the horns, when you see the moon, it's just like a sliver of a moon. That's the horns of Artemis. Artemis. Come ride my ovarian horns, down with the captive clitori, be free and speak my clitori. I'm so sorry. Artemis, come ride my ovarian's horns, down with the captive clitori, be free and speak my grisly bear lips. How we are. There are good bears and bad bears. I am one of them. She bear, a honey and potential man-eating mammalian. I forage because things are hard and what can be done? Remind me of the year I became the unknown visitor. I am still learning. Eastern and Western time. Once I was a dancing bear. Here are my teeth. What do you think? When I waited at your doorstep, I was just looking for something to fill the emptiness. We have all clawed at some point. I growl at all the wrong moments. It's the juxtaposition of my needs and the food in your hands. Autobiography number 6. I once loved a man named Toast. I am the product of an immaculate conception. It wasn't my mother's fault. She thought she was giving birth to a weapon. I turned out to be a different kind of virgin. I was born wearing a leather corset, red lipstick, mist, damp fur, wet grass, and raw salt. If I had a superpower, it would be to evaporate. I could be dust. I live among the Drosera Capenzis, snap traps, rain lamps, and plastic wet machines. My tongue lacks language. I look at art. I look at you. I look at art. I'll sweat it out in a small room to hear poems about fallen peach halves. Oh, how they still listen. I say this to Anne. Let's watch the red powder pour down the White House walls. Listen. There's always someone being erased. There could be sleep, drowsy flesh and slow. There could be the yes to a good sensory buzz, sound of a sizzle, the hiss of an aerosol can, any kind of chemical kiss, the kind that makes the brain toast. I rubbed the sharpest rocks. I cupped the peach halves in my hand and brought them to my ear and listened. Rules for the modern girl. 1. Freedom is attainable as long as you stay. Wear a t-shirt that says, beware the amorphous wet mound. 3. You are allowed fancy pants. Fly them like you would a flag. Watch out for vexation. You might have to fly them at half-mast. 5. Someone will say something about a cow, more commonly referred to as a heifer. Remember that in another country, she is sacred, and that she shits in the street while walking away. 7. All this is cause for celebration. Decide what to wear at the debut of your re-virginalization. It was really interesting getting ready for this reading. There was so much that made me, I selected Sandra Cisneros and then immediately freaked out and thought, oh my God, I don't think she's my most intense influence. And then the more I read her work and the more I looked at my own work, the more I found these tiny consistencies and felt like she really actually had really influenced. I think that the first influence is that she actually made me, in her poems, feel confident enough to write. American Chien. She pats it like the family dog, treats it like an umbrella, now open, now close, makes it do tricks, sticks an eyeball in it, scares all the customers. I can see you. Persona non grata, vagina dentata. That thing down there. I wanted to read you a section of an essay that she wrote about the Guadalupe, which is it's a strong image of the Latino culture. I'm actually not Mexican, Santa Cisneros is, but somehow the Guadalupe makes it all the way to all the way down Central America and into South America. She's very popular. So this is an excerpt, it's not a whole piece. As far as I could see, La Lupe was nothing but a goody two-shoes, meant to do me into a life of unhappiness. Thanks, but no thanks. Motherhood or marriage, what an anthem to my career. But being a bad girl, that was something I could use as a writer. A Molotov to toss at my papa and El Papa, who had their own plans for me. Discovering that sex was like discovering writing. It was powerful in a way I couldn't explain, like writing. Like writing, you can go beyond the guilt and the shame to get anything. You have to go between the guilt and the shame to get anything good. Like writing, it could take you deep and mysterious of subterranean levels. With each new depth, I found out things about myself I didn't know. And like writing, for a slip of a moment, it could be spiritual. The cosmos pivoting on a pin could empty and fill you all at once, like the Ganges or a Piazzolla tango or a tulip bending in the wind. I was no one, I was nothing, and I was everything in the universe, little and large, twig, cloud, sky. How had this incredible energy been denied me? When I looked at La Virgen de Guadalupe now, she was not the Lupe of my childhood, no longer the one in my grandparents' house in Teopeque, nor is she the one in the Roman Catholic Church. Not the one I bolted the door against in my teens and 20s. Like every woman who matters to me, I've had to search for her in the rubble of history. I've found her. She is Guadalupe, the sex goddess, a goddess who makes me feel good about my sexual power, my sexual energy, who reminds me I must, as Clarissa Piccolo Estes so aptly put it, speak from the vulva, speak from the most basic, honest truth, and write from my panocha. Okay. The Adventures of the Virgin de Guadalupe, Part 4. Beams of light pour through the slated windows of Café de la Paz. This is their date. She sits, hands together, looking down, and silently considers the serpent. Lupe is not looking for the cultural convergence, just a good time, and an average-looking man with a generous secular aptitude. Her ritual includes prayer, taking the Lord's name in vain, sometimes. She can't help herself. The flames of the divinity burst all around her, and she'll say to her date, "Oh, please, just shut up, for it all goes to hell." Satan is never far away. He giggles like a schoolgirl, likes to say, "Another bad date?" They've been cyclically connected since 1531. Back then, they thought they would marry, but he could never forgive her for Juan Diego. She'd warned him. She wasn't a saint. Back at the Café de la Paz, her date is speaking. His hands are in the air, gesticulating, speaking as if the Holy Spirit has possessed him. He's explaining his theory on gender communication. He mentions that he ought to have tenure. She's fond of saying, "I'm a prophet, goddammit." He fails at trying to be inconspicuous as he fumbles with a wooden match. Once the match is lit, he tries to force the candle above his head. Lipis sighs, places her hand on his face. Kala cups his cleft chin. When he tries to turn his head, she holds him steady and she says, "I know, but do you want to have sex?" So one of the things I felt like I really learned from Sandra Cisneros is that, you should write your truth and you should just do it. So I kind of feel like I should run that last bit of the film that runs, after you've seen the movie, no people or animals were hurt. Okay, anyway, think of that. Damien. I met Damien at a poetry reading, and he gave me his number because he was the only, and I gave him my number because he was the only man under 60 at the event. His poetry rhymed and used words like goddess, universe, and energy. But he was young, and I thought that was worth something. I thought. On our first date, he took me to the Cliff House Diner where he prayed over his grilled cheese sandwich. When he was done eating his grilled cheese sandwich, he began to talk again. I don't understand why it is that women always go for men who treat them like crap. I mean, I'm employed. I'm a teacher. I have my own apartment. I own a car. Okay. Maybe it's an old car. But I'm a great guy. I know I'm a catch. I really am. Why is it that women always go for losers? I'm right here and I'm not the hottest guy I know, but I'm all right. Right? Do you think I'm handsome? Could I lose? I know I could lose a few pounds, but I make up for it with creativity. I guess I just have to wait until I'm famous. I guess I should get a shirt that says, "I'm in the band, fuck me." I just don't get it. Why do women want these guys who only think of themselves? I have so much to give. Oh well, I guess all I have to do is wait. The women will come after I've been published. I know I'm gonna get big. I was bored. "Tell me something," he said, catching me off guard. I thought he was still talking to himself. I didn't have a chance to respond. "Does size really matter?" he asked, looking straight at me. I started to get up, but I was cut off by a commotion that had started at the table next to ours. I heard a woman's shrill voice. She was on the floor kneeling next to a man. "Are you all right, Bill? Bill, can you hear me?" Her voice was escalating. Someone else shouted, "Call 911. Everything in the restaurant had come to a standstill. We were all watching a man die. "So, what do you want to do now?" Damien said, looking up at me, smiling, hopeful. "There's a guy dying next to our table. It might be a bad omen, don't you think?" Damien was silent for the first time in over an hour. I looked at him and I said, "Yes, Damien, size does matter." I've been writing a lot. I'm writing a lot recently. I'm working on a novel, and it feels like everything in the novel is really kind of a downer. And so I wanted to make sure not to leave you guys in a downer tonight. So one of the things I love about Sandra Cisneros is she's both really intense, but also really whimsical and playful and all about love. This is called Little Clown, My Heart. Little clown, my heart, spangled again and lopsided, handstands and peaking pirouettes, backflips snapping open like a carpenter's hinged ruler, little gimp-footed hurrah, paper parasols of pleasure, fleshy undertongue of sorrows,
sweet potato plant of my addictions. Acapulco, cliff diver corazon, fine as an obsidian dagger. Alley-oop, and here we go again, into the froth, my life, into the flames. And I just wanted to end with a couple of 3 poems so that you know that I'm not completely dark and horrible. Bajo Fondo Tango Club. Beneath the canopy of vessels, the bandionista squeezes in and out. The fingers are pressed against my skin. Capillaries are birds in the sky, our breaths carried forth. Strong gaze of raindrop eyes, azul, and the god in me explodes, falls to the ground, makes mud, the wind lures. You catch the small of my back, I eye the curve of your neck. A celestial opening, toes not touching the floor. Pattern of chaos, the kind of kiss that ties you down, swelling with adventure, moving in unison like air. This kind of fire burns the tongue, tastes like the red-bellied fruit. We have dipped our fingers into hell and written its shame that we can't because this begs the arches of our body, feet and back, the glitter of sound on your skin, the damp feel of it, how it sticks to you and I, shine with it like light. My want was to learn how to use the muscles of my mouth. Lament without charge, there would be no butterflies. Remember the light of moths. Consider beauty and beast. Which would the sparrow, the lemur, and the puma be? To write poetry about war, there is beauty in ugliness. Counting the beads in a line, the man who survives torture by reciting a poem remembered from childhood. We are all hummingbirds and trumpet flowers. The devil is a tired old man, always working so hard, and never a kind word. If only the determination of ants, if only the song of the meadowlarks, if only we could appreciate the pigeons, how tough these rock doves. Imagine the bright green bird of new grass. And I'll finish with this tiny love poem, Hammer and Sickle. I tried to write you a love poem that could change the world, because we are change, not loose and trapped in a dirty pocket. But then the thought about gutter punks and the beauty of not having anywhere at any time, and how lost we can all be. I once worked a job that stripped me of allness, God, and goodness. I thought about dancing naked and other fantasies, and how having altars can be good or a bad thing, and how easily we treat each other unholy. I spent the summer learning about Komodo dragons and parthenogenesis, all that hard work, what we do in the name of that elusive unicorn. Thank you.